Commander Thexara stood at the observation deck of the Dominion's Pride, watching the blue marble of Earth rotate slowly beneath them. The third planet from this unremarkable star had yielded easily to their initial scans. Primitive technology, fractured governments, weapons that relied on crude chemical propulsion. The hegemony's conquest algorithms had calculated a 99.7% probability of total subjugation within 72 standard cycles. Pitiful, Thexara muttered, her mandibles clicking in disdain. The humans had barely achieved faster-than-light communication, let alone travel. Their military forces wielded projectile weapons that fired small metal slugs, laughably primitive compared to the hegemony's plasma cannons and photon disruptors. The first wave had been a demonstration. Thexara's forces had descended upon major population centers, their sovereign-class battle armor gleaming in the alien sunlight. The armor had never failed them, not against the crystalline warriors of Zephyria, not against the biomechanical hordes of the Nexus Collective, not against any of the 47 species they had conquered in their march across the galaxy. Forged from metamorphic tritanium and enhanced with adaptive shield matrices, the armor could deflect energy weapons, absorb kinetic impacts, and self-repair minor damage. Each suit cost more than most civilizations' entire military budgets. The hegemony scientists had proclaimed it the pinnacle of defensive technology, truly flawless. The humans' first response had been exactly what the tactical computers predicted. Military forces converged on the landing zones, unleashing everything in their arsenal. Tank shells bounced harmlessly off the armor's surface. Missiles exploded against the shield matrices without leaving so much as a scorch mark. Even their largest artillery pieces, primitive chemical explosives, barely registered on the suit's damage sensors. For 6 hours, human forces threw everything they had at the invaders. For 6 hours, Thexara's soldiers stood motionless, allowing the bombardment to continue, their armor systems barely flickering as they absorbed the futile assault. When the humans exhausted their ammunition, the real demonstration began. Plasma cannons carved through their vehicles like paper. Photon disruptors reduced their concrete fortifications to molecular dust. In less than 20 minutes, 3 major cities had fallen. But humans, Thexara soon discovered, were not like other species. The real war began in the mountains of what the humans called Afghanistan. Thexara had expected the survivors to flee to these remote regions. Most conquered species sought refuge in whatever wilderness remained. What she hadn't expected was for them to fight back. The first casualty report confused her. Trooper Vexnil had simply stopped responding. His armor's telemetry showed all systems functioning normally, then nothing. When they found his body, there was a small hole punched clean through the back of his helmet, and another through his skull. Impossible, Thexara's chief engineer Kolthar had insisted. The armor's integrity was not compromised. This must be some form of exotic weapon, but the holes were too small, too precise. They looked almost like... But no, that couldn't be right. The second casualty came 3 days later, then a third. Each time the same impossible phenomenon, tiny perforations through the flawless armor, so small they barely registered on sensors yet deadly to the occupants within. It wasn't until they captured a human sniper that Thexara understood what they were facing. The weapon was absurdly primitive, a mechanical device that used controlled chemical explosions to propel small metal projectiles. The human called it a rifle. The projectile itself was equally crude, a small cone of lead and copper, no bigger than Thexara's smallest claw. "You want to know why your armor fails?" the human had asked during interrogation, his voice steady despite the neural probe attached to his skull. His name was Marcus Chen, a former soldier-turned-resistance fighter. "It's because you designed it to stop weapons like yours." Thexara's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Explain." "Your armor disperses energy, absorbs impact, redistributes force over its entire surface. It's perfect for fighting energy weapons and explosive devices." Marcus smiled, a disturbing expression that exposed his small white teeth. "But my bullet doesn't care about your fancy energy shields. It doesn't carry enough kinetic force to trigger your impact dispersal systems. It's just a tiny piece of metal moving really, really fast." The human was correct. The hegemony's flawless armor had been designed to counter the weapons of advanced civilizations. Plasma, photons, antimatter. The armor could handle anything the galaxy's most sophisticated militaries could produce. But a simple bullet, traveling at hypersonic speed, was too primitive to register as a threat worthy of the armor's attention. The entry hole is smaller than your sensor threshold, Marcus continued. Your armor doesn't even realize it's been compromised until it's too late. By then the bullet is already bouncing around inside your soldier's body. Thexara realized with growing horror that this was why the damage reports had been so confusing. The armor remained technically functional even after being penetrated. To its sensors, a hole the width of a human hair might as well not exist. Over the following weeks, the casualty reports multiplied exponentially. Human resistance fighters, armed with weapons that belonged in a museum by galactic standards, picked off hegemony forces with ruthless efficiency. They modified their bullets, made them faster, heavier, more penetrating. They used materials the armor had never been programmed to recognize as threats: depleted uranium, tungsten cores, even sharpened steel. The hegemony's finest warriors, protected by armor worth more than small planets, were being killed by projectiles that cost less than a meal. "Sir," Kolthar approached Thexara in the command center, his voice trembling. "The humans have begun producing what they call armor-piercing rounds. Initial reports suggest they can penetrate our suits at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters." Thexara looked down at Earth again, but now the blue marble seemed different, more dangerous somehow. The humans had done something no species in galactic history had managed. They had found a flaw in flawless armor, not through advanced technology or superior materials, but through the simple application of physics that the hegemony's engineers had deemed too primitive to consider. "Prepare the retreat," she ordered finally. "All forces immediate withdrawal." "Commander?" Kolthar's confusion was evident. "We still have overwhelming superiority in orbital bombardment, aerial support." "No." Thexara's mandibles clicked once, a sound of finality. "Any species clever enough to defeat our armor with such elegance is not one we want to face when they develop real weapons." As the hegemony fleet departed Earth system, Marcus Chen stood in a mountain clearing, watching the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. In his hands he held his grandfather's hunting rifle, a weapon over 2 centuries old made of steel and wood, firing bullets his great-grandfather might have recognized. Sometimes, he reflected, the old ways were the best ways. The humans had taught the galaxy an important lesson that day. Flawless armor was only flawless until someone found the flaw. And humans, as it turned out, were very good at finding flaws.